All right, so welcome everyone to the July SRC meeting. Um, shouldn't be too long today. We have just a couple updates and we'll do introductions because we do have one new person today. So we'll start with those introductions and then we'll do some of the committee updates. We'll talk about any things related to some of the state plan goals and priorities and any updates there. Then we'll hear from Andy. And then if you guys have other questions or comments, we'll do that. We'll do that last. So if we'll go ahead and we can just do introductions. I'm Anjali McGugan. I am the SRC chair. And I'm also a supervisor with RSA.
I'll go next. I am Andy Reese. I'm the Director of the Department on Disability Services. And I'm here in the room with...
Hello, everyone. My name is Brittany Tarver. I'm the newest project manager for VR General. And so happy to meet everyone. I will pass it over to Chloe.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chloe Peoples. I'm a staff attorney at Disability Rights DC. I'm the Client Assistance Program Advocate and chair of the policy committee for doing that. I will pass it to Susan.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Susan Brooks, and I am the Chief Innovation Officer at RSAM of Washington, which is a disability service provider here in the district.
Morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Johnson. Oh, no worries. Good morning. I'm Michelle Johnson, Aussie's Adult and Family Education Division.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rachel McKinley. I am the policy analyst with RSA at DDS.
Hi, everyone. My name's Lucas Lefebvre. I'm a VR specialist here at RSA.
I am Charliza Payne, the executive assistant here at DDS.
Hi, everyone. This is Allison White with the Developmental Disabilities Council.
And Alec, who was the first person in the room, is the only person who hasn't introduced himself.
Just trying to figure it all out. My name is Alec. I'm the RSA representative. So.
Right. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. I know that it's almost the holiday weekend, so I'm sure you guys are kind of itching to get out and enjoy whatever festivities you're doing over the holiday. So again, thank you for coming. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, or at least since we last came together, I know that the committees have been meeting. Some committees have been able to get in at least one meeting, and then there's others that have been able to get in 2 meetings. So today we'll get the updates from that. And I just want to thank everybody for doing your best to make it to those meetings. I know that we all have, busy work schedules, and it's at least the ones that I've been able to participate in, we've gotten a lot of ground covered. So I'm very happy with where we are. But just a reminder that if you're unable to join the meetings or come to the meetings, just let your committee members know so that, we're not in the meeting just hanging out waiting on you or thinking that you're going to join. So just shoot the committee members an email if you see, something change in your schedule and you're unable to attend. So we have 4 committees, and I guess I'll just call them off the list, but just asking for any updates, any questions or concerns, that you'd like to bring forth. This would be a good time to share those. So we'll start with the nominating committee. If you guys have any updates, Allison, or anything, any grounds that you've covered and you want to provide an update.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, the nominating committee met, and thanks to Director Reese and probably some others at RSA, we didn't have a lot of work to do because the SRC membership is pretty full and covered, so that was great. We did discuss drafting some language about the nominating committee that could go into the bylaws. So something that could help the policy committee as we review and revise bylaws. We can draft a paragraph or a couple bullets about the nominating committee's purpose and activities. I think that covers it. Is there anybody else that was? I'm trying to see if there was anyone else that was there that might have anything to add. Do you remember anything, Anjali? I know you were there.
Not anything in specific. I think that it covered it. I'm looking through my notes from that.
Great.
Anjali, I was read in on just some of my new roles and responsibilities. So I'll be working with Darlene and Damien to help with appointees for the Silk. So looking forward to doing that with a goal of having the members ready to go forward by October. I'm also just making sure that I am kind of creating and updating the spreadsheet about who sits where and how long they're appointed and when they're termed, just to help myself and anyone who needs to get organized about the process for nominating new folks in 2026 or 2027, depending on what their terms end.
Thank you.
You know, one thing we also discussed during that meeting was looking at advocacy groups and, you know, trying to determine if there were others that we could reach out to who might, from the customer's perspective, might want to participate.
Thank you, Michelle. That jogged my memory. We did talk about, I know we were looking at Deaf Reach as a possible organization to reach out to see if they had anyone that would want to be a member.
Okay. Andy, I thought you had some things to share during that too, that during that meeting. You brought up some good points and I can't remember now.
Oh. All I recall is that we had one member of the SRC that represents one of the required positions who went through the whole process to get appointed and then let us know that they're no longer interested, which was a bit curious because, as everyone here recalls, the process to get appointed wasn't such a quick, easy one.
Right.
And so the fact that someone went through all of that, but then said, no, I'm not interested. And we actually have a person who is applying to that's part of the labor, business, and industry positions. We have someone else who is interested in applying. So we'll see if I hope that person will follow through.
Okay.
And then Brittany will be working. She's responsible for both the SRC and the Silk with coordinating with folks to help them through that MOTA process.
Okay. And as a just a quick update, since we're on the topic of being sworn in, just a follow up from the last meeting. I did reach out to Vita to ask about our certificates that I think, Lucas, you brought that up, and I did not receive a response. So I'll follow up again with her to try to get some type of movement on that attraction, just to see where those certificates are for those who will receive those.
Just a suggestion, when you reach out, copy me.
Okay, thank you. I'll follow.
Talked about the VR amendment. during that meeting, as, was we have a brief conversation about that amendment, Andy?
That's the next agenda item.
Oh, okay. Okay, but I think we had a brief conversation about it at the meeting, that needed, just doing this month, right? July, something like that. Anyway, we'll talk about it the next item.
Okay. And moving to the next committee, we can go to policy planning and review, which we've made a lot of progress.
Yeah, we have. We have quite a bit to share. And Rachel, I don't know if you wanted to kind of talk about the policies that are up for review, or I can just kind of go through what the policy committee reviewed and our recommended changes.
Sorry, I was just trying to get to the mute button. I think that we can honestly just go through the policies and just the recommended changes because it's yeah, just the due process policy, the intake policy procedure, and then the declaration form, if
Yeah,
I'm not mistaken. Yes.
yeah. So I'm going to put I wonder if I can share the files in the chat. Let me try and do that. Just so everyone has a copy of our recommended changes. And then I think we vote on them. Did we ever get clarity on that process?
I don't think so.
I'm going to be looking at the regulations while you walk through this.
Okay. I think that should have sent. So we've reviewed completely 2 policies and 1 declaration. And we are still in the process of reviewing the intake standard operating protocol. So hopefully there will be an update on that next time. But for the no conflict of interest declaration, it's a new document. We didn't have any comments on it, and we would recommend approval of that via a vote. For the intake policy, I don't think there were a ton of changes, but we just walked through kind of the intake process. We are going to have some more comments on the intake standard operating protocol. But for the intake policy, we just recommended a couple changes to include a more specific policy for scheduling intake appointments. We recommended, adding some 2 contact attempts via phone with voicemail message, and then a letter trying to get in touch with someone before closing out an intake. And then we added a few words just to make it clear that the intake process applies to all locations where people would request an intake, including American Job Centers. Other than that, we didn't have any other recommended changes, and so we would recommend voting for approval with those changes. And then the due process policy, we didn't have any changes to the policy. There were a couple of issues that I wanted to bring to the SRC kind of as an aside, but wouldn't go into the policy process. And yeah, those are our updates. We're still working on the intake standard operating protocol because there's a new system being rolled out in RSA. And I think we just wanted to get a better understanding of how that system is working, what should go into the procedure, the protocol, and what shouldn't. And we also have not started looking at the bylaws. I know, Andy, you sent around a version of the bylaws. It's quite old. There was another version that was distributed in 2023, and I think Angela and Nalika had made comments on it, and then I'd added some comments. So that's kind of floating around. I don't know if RSA wanted to take another look at that, but I think the policy committee is going to look at that in our future meetings. But yeah, we got a decent amount done, which was exciting.
Do you want to talk about, since we're just on the topic, just go ahead and address what you wanted as far as the due process aside from?
Yeah, sure. Great time to open up discussions with the SRC about that because it didn't seem like an appropriate place in the policy to recommend these kind of changes, but as part of the SRC as a whole, making recommendations to DDS and RSA about potential changes. I wanted to look into the mediation option because it's not really an option right now unless you file for a hearing. And it doesn't seem like a best practice to, if you want to have a third party, a neutral party, look at an issue, to have to file for a hearing, go through kind of onerous processes, maybe having to respond to a motion to dismiss just to get a mediation option. So I started looking at what other states have done. And, you know, this is just kind of preliminary. I thought maybe some people in the SRC that are interested could look at it with me. Some states have a mediation provider that's a vendor. And then maybe there's an option at the Office of Administrative Hearings to just click for mediation and not file for a due process hearing. Maybe that's an option. So that's something I wanted to bring to the SRC. And the other thing that I think would be a good recommendation from the SRC that we can talk about is to recommend changing the regulation back. Right now, to request a hearing, there was a change a couple years ago that changed it from having business days, a certain amount of business days to request a hearing, to calendar days. So I think to open up discussions with the SRC about recommending to change that back because it's the only reference to calendar days in the statute. It just shortens the time that people have to file for a hearing. It's confusing because it's the only reference to calendar days. And then as I was looking at different mediation options, I was also seeing different timelines that other states have for requesting due process hearings or informal administrative reviews that are much longer. So it might be something for the SRC to look at to even recommend just longer timelines for people to have to request review of certain decisions. Because I know it can take a while to get records. I know I've had that process take a couple weeks. And when you only have 10 business days to request an informal administrative review, if you're waiting 7 of those or even more to get records, it's a quick turnaround time. So those were just a couple things that I wanted to bring to the SRC. I don't anticipate we'd move on anything today, but just as a starting point.
And I'm not sure, other than some of the other people on the committee may not be familiar kind of with what the agency's due process is. I know myself and Chloe and Lucas and Andy and maybe Rachel have more familiarity just because we kind of work together off the committee in situations like this. But just for those who are not familiar, typically the due process is it generally takes place when a client or when a decision has been made, and then the client has a right to an appeals process. And so the part where this kind of comes in, where Chloe is speaking on, is generally when a decision has been made and the client decides that they'd like to start the appeals process. um, they have a right to request an informal administrative review. But between the informal administrative review and the next process of this, which um, just reading from the policy, this is, and Chloe shared the policy in the chat, but it goes straight. The next part of that would be to go straight to a hearing. There's not a middle ground, if you will, between that. And so, and Chloe, correct me if my understanding is wrong, but um, other states have kind of like a middle ground before they go to the next process, which is the actual hearing portion of it. So that kind of, I think, breaks it down just a little bit more general. And
Thank you, Anjali.
it breaks it down just a little bit more general.
Thank
So we're
you.
looking for a middle ground between an informal review, an informal administrative review, which is generally conducted by the program manager, which in this case is Ricky Wright. And so during the informal administrative review, there's generally a meeting that's scheduled between the client, the program manager, and if the client has a representative. And so a meeting takes place, and then a further decision is made from that. If the client is still not pleased with the outcome and they want to take it a step further, there's no, right now as it currently stands, there's no middle ground. The next step is to go and file for hearing. And so
That's not
Chloe,
true. Can I interrupt? I'm sorry.
yes,
I've waited a long time and
I'm
I
sorry.
thought to
That's why
myself,
I
I'm
was,
not going to say anything, but I want to say two things. One is that our current policy says that the administrative review is heard by the VR director or their designee. So just to be clear, that would be either me or, and going forward, that will be Brittany, who's the project manager. But mediation is available before you go to a hearing at OAH. I did like the suggestion Chloe had, and one of the things I do want to make clear, and I think we probably need to make it clearer, and perhaps we could revise some of the notice that we provide. One of our obligations when someone wants to file at OAH is if they just say to us, I want to file at OAH, we're supposed to facilitate that. So that could mean us filing something kind of on their behalf, which seems a little awkward given that they're filing against you. But if a person says to us, I disagree with your decision and I want to file at OAH, we're required to assist with that. So like if they were to send something saying I want a hearing just to us, but didn't send it, we're obligated to submit it. So what we could do is be clearer about, if you wish to go to mediation, we can facilitate mediation, and then we would file the thing at OAH with the with the fact that they had an administrative review, they were dissatisfied and they would like to have mediation, and could that be arranged? And that way you wouldn't have them feeling like they're having to file for a hearing or go through any other process other than that we have filed this. And we used to meet quarterly with the, I'm trying to think of, I think it's chief administrative law judge. And we could talk to them about making that process more seamless so that we go straight into what is then mediation.
So are you saying there's an option right now to just have mediation without filing for a due process hearing?
You file for a hearing, but you can say in your request that you're asking to go to mediation, and you can go straight there.
okay.
And what I'm saying is, rather than telling the person you have to go file, we could be clear that they could ask us and we would file, and then it would go to mediation. And we did, just by the way, in the past, we've had an issue in the past with timeliness with OAH, which in our regular meetings with them, we've addressed with them because our VR regulations have requirements for when a decision has to come out of there, and they sometimes weren't meeting it. So that's one of my small concerns about them doing mediation, is making sure that if we ask for it, it actually happens timely. And just to explain the day issue, well, I think what we did with most of our policies was shift to kind of consistent with what our Superior Court rules, which is if it's fewer than 11, it's work days. If it's 11 or more, it's calendar days. Because we had some provisions in our rules that had 30 business days, which counting 30 business days is crazy. And so that was one of the reasons that's where the dividing line was written. That's the rationale for it. I'm not saying that means it doesn't change. As John was explaining, the reason that you see calendar days and business days is it's sort of consistent with the other arenas that we practice in, where they have, up to this level, you count work days. Beyond this level, you count calendar days, just because of the ease of counting.
That's interesting.
So it sounds like it's there, but we just need to
have a discussion of
flesh it out more to make sure that it's more in plain language. And talk
with them. I think that we have a meeting with them to make sure that, like, can we go there without first having without first having like the preliminary hearing before the ALJ, just to say, can we start with mediation and then decide whether to go on from there? I would think they would like. The current presiding person at OAH is very favorable to mediation, so it may be a discussion we could have with her.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be great.
This is Allison. Quick question. Does OAH do mediation, or?
Yes.
So they can do both. Got it.
And it's not like whoever gets assigned then to do the hearing can't do the mediation, because you can't, an individual ALJ can't do both, but OAH can do both. And just by the way, we don't pay for any of that. So
that makes sense. I think
that's one of my big issues with it is, and it's not like it's that much money, but money is money.
It seems like I'll just throw in my 2 cents. It does seem like it would make sense to make that explicit in the policy.
And I think make it easier to access is probably the bigger issue.
All right. Any other comments on that? I think when we have the next policy meeting, we'll just go back to that section and kind of review that a little bit more, Chloe.
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Okay, so that one is not ready to, I think before when we started, we said we would recommend that. I think that's the one that we would go ahead and vote on that one, but we might want to bring that one back to the table during the committee meeting.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay. All righty, moving to the next committee, we'll do,
I'm sorry, one thing.
Go ahead.
Before you move on, sorry. It appears to me that there isn't an explicit requirement that the SRC vote on policies. There is that, I'm trying to look right now, there is that we have a public process, which we do have to have, public notice and hearing and all of that when we have a new policy. And I think it's important to do it with the SRC before we get to that level, but I don't see at least an explicit requirement for the SRC to approve things before they then go on to the public requirement.
Okay, I was thinking,
I've just been reading it right now and I could have
Yeah.
missed something.
I think the voting I was thinking of is like the recommendations from the SRC, not necessarily saying this has to be, you know, what moves forward, but like as our SRC recommendations, voting to make sure that everyone from the SRC has had an opportunity to look at them at least, and vote on that. But maybe that's a misunderstanding of what the policy committee has done in the past.
Okay, so we'll go to the media. And Susan and Lucas, I believe you all were unable to meet because the chair wasn't there. Is that what happened?
Correct. We tried to schedule, I think, 2 meetings
Okay.
and then even held discussions about rescheduling, and there was no response.
Okay. And so I will follow up with, I know Deborah's not here today, and I actually saw her last Friday, and I should have stopped her and discuss that. But I will reach out to Deborah just to see where she's at um, with this, and if we need to look at maybe doing another chair, we can do that. But yes, I will reach out to her, and then we will go from there and try to get something else scheduled for you all.
Great. Thank you.
And lastly, we have consumer empowerment and advocacy. And we've met briefly on with that committee, and I'll let you take that, Susan, and then I'll add where the updates that I received. If you want to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, so we've had some barriers with attendance as well in this committee. Angeli has been kind enough to be an honorary committee member, which has been very helpful and much appreciated. But some of the things that we're working on is one thing that we're really looking towards is getting to see what has been done in the past few years as far as surveys and evaluations that have gone out, and kind of thinking about not necessarily improving the wheel and not reinventing the wheel. And so I know that we are working on getting copies of those, and also really just talking about like what we're wanting to measure, who we're wanting to touch, and then how we're to disseminate. The idea is that perhaps that was just disseminated via email or technology or link in the past. And so talking about how for folks that may not have ready access to technology or are not as technology user friendly, how can we try to reach additional folks through a different method, whether that be setting up a table at an employment fair and trying to get people that way, or other mechanisms in which we can try to incorporate and ensure that everybody has a way to kind of provide their experience and feedback without just relying on technology. So that is kind of where we are right now, and we are looking forward to moving forward.
And I also was able to reach out to our quality and performance team to try to obtain data from the previous surveys that have went out. And so I'm still in the process of collecting that. It's kind of been trying to track down who has that information in RSA. So I was able to meet with Angela Turner, who kind of walked me through the process of how the information is disseminated, and the company that we've used. kind of, I guess, a mail merger to kind of get that information out. But I'm still working on getting the past data so we can review that and see, like you said, instead of reinventing, not to reinvent the wheel, but to kind of pick up the process or, where it was left off from. So I will be reaching out to our performance team to try to get that information. And then hopefully at the next meeting, we'll be able to share a larger update on how we're progressing. I will also add some of the uh, information that we wanted to collect and look at. We discussed working with Department of Employment Services, so DOES, and also maybe getting some information or surveying our pre-ETS and youth service programs there. Susan, you did bring up a good point, and since we have Andy, but I know that we were talking about auditing some of the providers and what that looks like because you actually work with a provider, and just wanting to gain more clarity on that. So I don't know if you want to share your concern, and then we can
Yeah, a couple
discuss.
things. Thank you for that transition, and I almost forgot about that, so I appreciate you. And so one of the things is just a better definition of what the term audit is meaning in this context. And then also, for example, if we're auditing or we're evaluating pre-ETS programs, RCM provides pre-ETS programs, what does that look like? Is there any type of conflict we should be worried about?
And so another thing too that Andy and I kind of spoke about this yesterday, but in regards to like how we want this to look, it's kind of, I guess, open, meaning that we can kind of make it a little bit of what we want it to be. It's not necessarily like spelled out. And this is for all committees. I know, can't remember which I think it was the nominating committee because they were talking about like updating the bylaws in reference to their committee and drafting purpose for that. So for all the committees, we can always go back and look at it and decide, kind of how we want to approach it. So I think there is some flexibility in that. Any other comments related to that? Anybody? If not, I'll move on.
I just had a question. Auditing as it relates to providers, we do provider monitoring, but what's the provider auditing that you're referring to?
It is, and I'll read it because I have it or had it pulled up. But one of the in the bylaws, one second, just had it.
The other thing I thought we talked about, not in that meeting, but separately, was the possibility of having someone from Quatma participate in those meetings. That might be helpful because they would be familiar with exactly what's done about the consumer satisfaction surveys. Like providers are required to do them, and as an agency, we do them. So if we had someone, a staff person who we asked to attend those meetings regularly, that could be helpful.
And I make sure that I'll reach out.
Said you were going to do that, and I said I was going to do that, but I think it would be helpful to ask Shasta
Okay.
if she could identify the appropriate person who could participate in that.
Okay. So on the the duties of standing committee for the Consumer Empowerment and Advocacy Committee is listed in the bylaws that it states, where is it? Oh, conduct an annual operations audit of RSA service delivery to determine the value and effectiveness of RSA programs, its contractor and grantees to ensure compliance with the 92 amendments of the ADA affecting the employment outcome of RSA clients. So that is where we obtain the word audit from.
I think we should take into account that those were written
Okay.
before the invention of the computer.
Okay.
And that our bylaws are older than probably most of the people in this meeting, except me, and I can think of one other person, but I won't name anyone else. But, and, you know, we might want to, I think the policy committee's looking at them, but they should make sure and check in with the other committees. Because I think each committee, when they've looked at what their responsibilities are, have been like, oh, that, you know, maybe we need to re-examine this. So as we update the bylaws, we should be making sure that our committees make sense in 2025.
Yeah, we can do that in the policy committee. Can I be added to the Consumer Empowerment and Advocacy Committee?
Yes, please. Sure.
Yeah,
That would be great.
we'd love to have you. Would you like to be on any other committees?
The media
You were
committee could
absent.
also
You were
use.
absent during this time, and I don't think
absent during.
Sandy didn't want to like throw you out there. So if you would like to be on any other committees, naturally you were assigned to the policy one, but you're more than welcome to join any of the other ones.
I think maybe I'll add just one for now.
Okay. All right.
Watch by the end of the year, I'll be on
Thank
all
you.
of them.
Thank you for joining. We'll make sure that you get included in those invites. And so everybody, so Charlisa has done a great job with trying to accommodate us and helping us with getting a schedule on the calendar, as well as the setting the meeting time. So thank you, Charlisa, for doing that for us. I know it hasn't been easy with needing to reschedule and people not showing up and, you know, what have you. So we appreciate that and your support for that. So thank you. Okay, we'll move on, and there may not be any too big of an update for the next agenda item, which is state plan goals and priority updates. Andy, did you have anything to add for that one, or to the
Not
agenda
really,
item?
except that we did publish in the DC Register, and it is on our website, the goals and priorities as they've been amended through this process. And we will, it's like sometime in mid-July, we'll update our plan to reflect that. And then we'll begin working with performance to make sure that they're tracking. Because, you know, you put so many goals and measures in there, we need to make sure we're tracking all of them. Rather than looking at them at the end of the year when you're trying to write a report to talk about how we did on them, to make sure we're watching them as we go.
Okay.
Would it be possible to get updates to the SRC about the performance as they're being tracked?
Absolutely. Which dovetails with something and what I'm going to say. Is that what's next on your agenda? Is your director's report?
Yes, so you can, yeah, move on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Nice transition, Chloe.
Yes, perfect transition.
So,
Can I ask you
one of the
transition?
so as I what's
Sorry.
that?
Can I ask you one question before you transition? You said that you're going to be tracking the attainment of the goals and priorities. Are you doing that via some internal mechanism? Okay, I was just wondering if you knew if you knew that the WIC was doing something overall for us with the state plan relative to tracking, but this is just at your organization. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, this is just ours because no, I'm not aware of. Yeah, I won't go there right now. I'm not aware of the WIC tracking progress on the state plan, but I think it's essential that on the VR portion, we be tracking, you know, because you spend time developing these goals, objectives, and measures. And then, you know, you shouldn't look at those just at the end of the 2-year period or at the end of a year. So one important, in relation to the request Chloe just made, one of the things I thought is that for our September meeting, I was thinking it might be helpful to invite someone from performance to speak at the SRC meeting, because WIOA seems new to me. I should stop saying that at some point, even though it's now 11 years old. But at any rate, with WIOA, our performance year and our fiscal year are different. The performance year goes July 1 to June 30th. So we've just ended performance year 24-25, and we'll be filing our end of performance year reports by, it's like the middle of August. And I thought that we could have someone from performance come and walk through our performance for performance year 24-25 with the SRC at our September meeting. The other thing I was going to say is what I think would also be helpful is, or what I'd like to hear from people is, what other kinds of input from various divisions within the agency might be helpful for the SRC to hear from. One of the things I thought when you were talking about the due process is, I know that our general counsel's office had developed a presentation on due process rights for our Randolph-Sheppard vendors, which they could easily modify to make that presentation for VR to provide people an overview of that. You know, whatever. If there are questions people have, if there are people you think might be helpful, who could attend, who could come and present on particular items. As Chloe said, you know, can you get regular updates about various performance matters? We could have as a regular standing part of it, inviting performance and be clear about what agenda item we want them to address at each meeting. So if people can just let Anjali or me know, and then we can coordinate with the appropriate staff here. Other than that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say I would appreciate that an overview of the performance over the last year. I think that's a great idea, and it also made me think about it might be helpful for us as the SRC to hear about, get updates on concerns that are expressed elsewhere, like the at the budget hearing. I remember there were questions about the Randolph-Sheppard program and some of the issues that were happening there, and the updates on the deputy director position, that kind of stuff. I think it's helpful for us as a committee to also know what's going on with those things and be able to help communicate that out to the community also.
Thank you. The other item I wanted to make sure and share with people today was that we are now finally, I believe, transitioning from our current case management system, which is System 7, to Informed, which is a new case management system. The transition is going to occur the last week of July. It's like July, I think it's 26th to August 1st. During that week, we'll be sort of effectively shut down in that they'll be migrating the data from one system to another. They'll be providing some final in-person, they provided training for all staff, but they'll be here on site providing in-person training for everyone, so that the first week of August we'll be up and ready to go. What it means, of course, is that week we won't be seeing people or providing services. You know, if someone came in with an urgent matter, we can talk to them, but to the extent they needed like an authorization, it would have to wait, of course, until the next week when we have a system available to issue it. We're also not issuing new authorizations starting July 14th because they have to be issued in the new system. And if you issued it, it would have an end date of July 31st because every authorization in the system is ending July 31st and new ones will start then the beginning of August. And so we are working to make this as seamless as possible. This doesn't have an impact on the other end of things, which is when I think of July, August, I think of a whole lot of tuition and school items being resolved. Those authorizations should, I hope, already be done so that we can be paying tuition, so that that wouldn't be a problem. Or we will, as soon as we get up and running in August, issue new authorizations and get them paid. But it's this thing where every current authorization has an end date of July 31. So it may well be that, like, if someone had tuition that was due, that had to be paid by July, schools are getting earlier and earlier with that. Then it would have already been issued to work out payment. Otherwise, we would do it in August. As soon as Informed is up and running, we will keep you posted on how that goes. It's a little scary. They are, as I say, migrating everything over to this brand new system. We haven't done this kind of a switch since 2010 was the last time we did this. At that time, we went from a paper system to an online system. And we've been working closely with Libra, the company that manages that we get our online system from. We are not the first state doing this migration, so our hope is that they've been experimenting with the other states and will do it well by the time they get to us.
Any other updates?
That's all I have. I don't know. I didn't hear your comments as a request for comments today, Allison, I hope.
No. I was just,
Thank you.
you asked for other items and that's what came to mind.
Thank you.
Great. Do we have any updates from anyone else that you all would like to provide, or any other items, comments, questions, concerns?
I did want to share a resource. There's a national coalition of state rehabilitation councils, and they have like a webinar series for training for new members for SRCs, and like a little guidebook that explains the history and the requirements. So I just wanted to share that as a resource for people. I have not done the webinar yet, so I cannot speak to how helpful it may be. But just wanted to share that as a resource.
The SRCs also, I believe, when the Council for State Administrators of Vocational Rehabilitation Services have their conferences, the SRCs have a conference at the same time. Once a year, it's in Bethesda. So, that could be something. And I think it's like October, I believe, October and April. I believe are the dates of theirs. And the October one is the one that you travel for. The April one is the one that's in Bethesda, I believe. But I'll make sure that people know about that as well, because we can look at, whether the agency can support people being able to go to that. There are provisions in the state plan to provide for supporting the functions of the SRC and the SIL by helping people to be able to go to these kinds of events so that they can learn from other councils.
Thank you for sharing that, Chloe. Any other updates?
This is Allison. The DD Council is in the beginning stages of developing our next 5-year state plan, and we have some community forums coming up. And I'll have to follow up on this via email with everybody, but there's some forums later this month. July 18th is the from 11 to 12:30 is the forum where we're inviting professional advocates or agency staff to come give feedback. So, and Andy is co-facilitating that, I believe. So, are you?
I'll take your word for that.
You're doing one of them. I can't remember.
I'm doing one, and I'm, showing up with Jane, because Jane and I are co-facilitating whichever one we're doing. I'm showing up when I'm invited.
So I'll follow up via email with all of that and invite all of you to join that. I will say the few places where we've gathered feedback so far have primarily been focused with groups of people with developmental disabilities. And the issue that keeps coming up over and over again is transportation, which isn't something we've focused on before, but I thought I'd just share that it's an interesting thing that we're seeing so far. And just in general, I wanted to thank Andy for your leadership in pulling the SRC together, and Anjali, your leadership, taking on the leadership of chair. It really feels like this committee is up and moving, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And also wanted to say welcome back to Chloe. And also thank you to Charlisa for all of the support herding us cats to get meetings together. You are persistent and very helpful, and it's much appreciated.
The question about the transportation issue, is this transportation in general? Students, adult students need to have access to transportation to participate in educational training.
It's really across the board. Yeah, it's not focused on education or employment specifically. It's really just been transportation on a whole.
Now there's the, I think it's, Andy, you probably already know it too, the adult. I'm drawing a blank on the middle, but it's a transportation subsidy that I know that students in adult education engaged in training programs have access to. They get a smart card. It's a certain amount per month. Let me try to get some additional information, but I'm not sure if that might be an option for students who are having those challenges if they're trying to participate in education and training. But if some of the individuals are, then that might be a resource for them. It's not just, I think it has to be related to their participation. So anyway, I'll find out next time.
Thanks,
Could I also
Michelle.
just say, I put the link for the National Coalition of State Rehab Councils in the chat. And I also earlier had put the citation where you could find in the federal regulations the requirements for public input for RSA policies.
I found it. I'm gonna put it in the chat. The adult learner subsidy, adult learner transportation, DC's Department of Transportation. Somehow or another, $70 a month. So anyway, let me on the link, and I'll put it in the chat. That might help those individuals.
And Andy, I don't think the link that you sent is working, for me at least.
No, I think I tried it too. I was
Well,
getting
that's weird. Maybe I didn't copy it right. Oh, I didn't copy it right. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's not
what?
working.
No, it's because I put the wrong thing. There's a typo in it. Try it when it's typed correctly. Hold on 1 second. There it is.
Yes.
Need to clarify when you guys look at that. Seems like they have to be enrolled in an OSCE. But again, like I said, it's tied to education and training. Andy, didn't DOES, DOES also had or has a transportation assistance program for and I'll probably have to Google it. You remember that, Andy?
I mean, they provide transportation, but I think what we're hearing from the DD Council, and I know that at Project Action last weekend, someone from WMATA came and spoke, has more to do with accessible transportation, with metro access, with but also with concerns about, I mean, I don't know if you hear this here, but we hear this at the SILK meetings from independent living folks, concerns about bike lanes and safety navigating sidewalks and getting across streets, given some of the visibility issues that have been created with the way they've shifted parking in areas where there are bike lanes. So there were all kinds of travel issues that I've heard people raise about being able to rely on public transportation and just accessibility of the streets in the district. You know, repairing sidewalks, accessible sidewalks, and the impact of the bike lanes on the accessibility of sidewalks in the district, much more generally. And what I haven't heard were sort of specific agency concerns about when you provide a service, you don't provide adequate transportation for us. It was more a general, for people living in the community, concerns about transportation.
Who addresses that though, Andy? Like who?
DDOT.
Is that public? Oh, only DDOT, but not Public Works? Is not as like globally?
It's DDOT. And DDOT used to have a person who was specifically responsible. I'm sure they still do, but the person who used to be in that role used to work here. So we always had someone we could call directly to with our specific concerns, but DDOT specifically does address this.
Okay. I think that wraps us up for today. Just a couple follow-up notes that I've taken. We will be meeting again, I think it's September 4th, the first Thursday of September. So if you go ahead and mark your calendars for that, the invite should have already been sent out. We will also try, and I'm asking that the committee still continue to meet throughout the next couple of months, which will be roughly 3 months, I guess, or two months. So if we just kind of get those meetings on the calendar, and Charlize, if you wouldn't mind helping us with that. I will reach out to those members who are members of the committee but have not necessarily, or are members of the council but have not necessarily attended the committee meetings, just to see if where they're at as far as their interest. is concerned. And then we'll be working behind the scenes to kind of make sure that we do have someone who can help us with sharing the performance information of the agency for the performance year and give that, provide an update on that at our next meeting. I will continue to follow up with Vita to get those certificates out. And I think for the most part, that is the notes or at least the follow-ups that I have on my end. So as always, if you have any questions, you can let me know. Yes.
How many times do you want the committees to meet again before the next meeting? Are we doing once or twice or?
I believe, at least for the policy planning committee, I think the twice really did help us kind of get through it. So if we could, I'll leave that up to the committee. So I know for sure the policy probably needs 2 meetings. The nominating committee, I think you guys are okay with 1.
I'm not the chairperson.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for you, Allison. That's more than enough, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I made a meeting for that, but so at least for the nominating committee, I think 1 is fine. The media committee, 1 is fine. And Susan, I'm going to speak on behalf of the consumer empowerment, but just because we're still kind of working that out, I don't know if it's okay if we meet twice for that one, just because we are still moving some things around and trying to get situated for that.
I agree.
You said that was the consumer one that was
Yeah,
twice?
so just the policy and
Okay.
planning and the consumer can do twice, and then everybody else should be okay with at least.
And Chloe, you asked to be added to which invite was it? Was it the
Consumer empowerment.
consumer? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I don't have anything else, and I will, if nobody else has anything to offer, or anything to share, I think that concludes today's meeting.
Happy
Thank
lunch,
you.
everyone.
Good 4th
Thanks,
of July.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.